Good morning. Good morning. My name is Valerie Leonard. I am the founder of nonprofit Utopia. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. I realize time is valuable and it means a lot to us that you have taken a little bit of time, say about an hour or so, on a Friday morning during work time to join us. We can't thank you enough. We also thank Brooke Ingram and Sarah McNeil for joining us live in Zoom. We thank those of you who are watching on other live stream platforms. All righty. So as you may or may not be aware, we are focusing this month in the nonprofit Utopia community on the census. We realize that as nonprofit leaders, you really do need census data, but we also realize too, in many instances, the standard data sets that we get from other sources may or may not necessarily always fit our individual circumstances to the T. So we are going to this day focus on how you can generate your own data sets that will help you in the strategic planning process. Obviously, when you're doing a strategic plan, you're going to need more than demographic data, more than economic data that the Census Bureau provides, but we want to focus on how you might get those data sets. All right, and without further ado, we're going to give you a very high-level overview of what strategic planning is. And then after that, we will go into a demonstration of how you would navigate Census.gov, but Census.gov in order to get the data sets that you need. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Alrighty, again, we are focusing on how you can use the census in a real world situation. So we're going to show you a real world application of strategic planning. We're not going to go through every detail of strategic planning. If you need assistance with strategic planning, you can email me at valeriefleonard@nonprofitutopia.com, or you can go to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel has over 140 videos, some of which are on strategic planning. We start, from the beginning, starting with your community needs assessment and then theory of change, and then building every piece. But that is not what we're doing today. I just want to give you a very high level description of strategic planning. And those of you who are with us before, you know that at Nonprofit Utopia, our mission is to train the next generation of ethical nonprofit leaders, and we do it through professional development, programs such as this. We do coaching, we do consulting, we have an online community, and our vision is to strengthen the global nonprofit sector by training up to 50,000 people around the world between now and 2033. A little bit about me. I've spent over 30 years in nonprofit management in one form or another through financial analysis. I teach online as well as in person at local universities. I consult and coach and all of that. I won't go into so much detail about myself because we have a whole lot to cover. And as I indicated before, we often look at the census data and we have to describe our service areas, we have to do programs and all of that stuff, right? But we don't always know how to make that relevant to us. Sometimes the census data are a little bit overwhelming, and it's not always practical, right? So we thought that we would share a real world instance, and we would use strategic planning as our focus today. All right, so as you may or may not know, depending on what your background is, a strategic plan is a process that helps organizations to position themselves for the changes in the environment. And usually when we're talking about environment, we're talking about our community. The environment could also be considered, what the lay of the land is in terms of funding. But regardless, you want to be able to look at what's going on around you and then position yourself for success. And you do that by taking into account what's going on in the community. You get your mission, vision, core values, your strengths and weaknesses, and then those things that are happening that you don't have control of, such as, any opportunity and any threat. Opportunities are those things that are happening outside of your organization that can actually help you move forward, right? And those threats, again, are those things that you don't have control over that go on in the environment that can hurt your ability to meet your goals and objectives. All right, so this information is then used to develop organization level strategies, and then those strategies at a later time are refined and they become program strategies. And if you're in the for-profit world, those strategies can be refined to become, market plans for products and services. So the typical sections of a strategic plan, and these are typical sections, and this is more of a traditional strategic planning process. There are more condensed forms, and we've even gotten to a point where we can do all of this in one page, and I got a video on that. But for our purposes, we're going to just do a very high level overview of parts of a strategic plan in the traditional sense. All right. So usually in your main body, you'll start off with the mission, vision, and core values, and then you'll have goals and objectives and strategies. But that work is supported by appendices, and usually this could include things like an environmental scan, looking at what's going on around you. Who are the major players in the market? What are the demographics in that market? And obviously, you're going to need more than the census data to do this, but our focus today is how you're going to use the census data to actually help you do the environmental scan, right? So we'll look at things like the demographic data, and we may or may not be able to today look at the number of institutions in a community based on the economic census. We'll go with the flow. Those of you who are here in the Zoom room have heard that, we may or may not have enough time to go into all the detail that's necessary to go from a demographic presentation to the economic census. And that's not because of logistics, but because we really don't have enough time, and we don't want to take for granted that certain things. So again, we will play it by ear, and if we need to do a separate section on just the economic census, we can do that at a later time. But at any rate, on with the appendices. We've got the client analysis, and that will help you understand, who is your current client, right? Look at some of their needs, some of their wants, are they being served properly, where you can serve them better. Your partner analysis is looking at who is in your environment and who might help you, other organizations or other individuals that might be helpful and looking at what they can contribute to your strategy. And then we've got the stakeholder analysis, and those are people who may or may not be clients or partners. They can be other people who are impacted by your work as an organization. They could be supporters, or they could be people who might be adversaries. At any rate, anyone who is going to be impacted positively or negatively, friend or foe, should be analyzed, so to speak, to see what role they might play in helping you to advance your strategic plan. And then we've got the SWOT analysis, and that is strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And when you see the asterisks by, say, environmental scan or the SWOT analysis, those are the two areas of the strategic plan where you might use census data. And for the SWOT analysis, you're not going to use census data for your strengths and weaknesses, because strengths and weaknesses are describing what's going on with your organization. You know, things like board governance, your programs, your financials, and all of that stuff that you have some control over. The opportunities and threats, those are the things that are going to impact your organization's ability to meet your goals and objectives in your strategic plan, but you have no control over them. So, for example, changing demographics. You know, in the North Lawndale community, I would say about 10 years or so, even more than 10 years ago, we lost about 1,500 units of affordable housing, low-income affordable housing, and many of those affordable housing units had children that would attend local schools in the area along Douglas Boulevard. And then there were also some youth programs. So when we lost 1,500 units of housing due to the developer's failure to bring those buildings up to code, the schools lost students, and some of those organizations along the Boulevard area also lost clients. So in that case, you know, depending on when the ACS surveys were done, in that case, we lost population, but it still shows up regardless. North Lawndale is very lowly. We've lost population. We're down to about 35,000 people. But at any rate, that impacted schools as well as youth programs. And it also impacted, you know, developers. You know, that threat to some nonprofits and to the schools, and leading up to some school closures, right? That was a huge threat for the schools and the nonprofits. But at the same time, it presented a huge opportunity for developers, you know, looking to take over those properties and rehab them. So, you know, the data can tell you, you know, can be a positive story in one instance and a negative story in other instances. Then after that, you develop your action plan, which takes into account your goals and objectives and your strategies, right? And then you assign people with specific tasks to help you move the plan forward, and then you develop a budget. And during your implementation phase, you also want to have a mechanism that will help you monitor your progress. A good way to do that is through a scorecard, you know, where you can look at a snapshot and see your progress, or any monthly report, quarterly report, and all of that stuff. All right. But I'm going to stop sharing. I just want to give you some context before we go into our demonstration of the census. All right. And before Ileana comes up, are there any questions, Brooke or Sarah? Okay. Doesn't sound like we have any questions, and I'll be checking the chat room in our live stream. If you're watching on social media, feel free to post in chat. I'll be monitoring those questions, and then I'll also post a link in the event that you're looking to come into the Zoom room. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ileana, and then while Ileana is coming forth, I will be posting the link to the Zoom room in our chat. All right.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Valerie, can you see the main screen of Census.gov?
I can. Thank you.
Great. So good morning, all. Hope you are having a pleasant Friday thus far. My name is Ileana Serrano. I'm a data dissemination specialist with the Census Bureau, and I provide census data support to Illinois and Indiana. I back up other states in the region, Wisconsin and Michigan mostly. But we're going to do a little bit of an exercise in terms of what is available that you can use for your strategic plans, what you can look at, and some may require external sources or other sites, but this is mostly going to involve the census products and tools that are available for you. So if you were on the other day's session, this is where we learn how we define our area, our service area, and what we can do with that geography. Okay, and pardon me if I get into my census lingo because it is specific terms that we throw out that those that work with data and are aware of the geographic tools and data extraction tools, they know. So if there's a term that I use that you may not understand or need a little bit of clarification, please let us know. Okay, so coming into the splash page of Census.gov, this is going to be your entry portal into anything census related. Okay, so your navigational tabs are across the top, and as you hover over them, they do expand, and this is where you are going to go to the topic page. So if you have questions on age and sex with regards why we collect age and sex data, how it's broken out, anything that has to do with that topic, this is your main page of information. Public information with regards to what we just released in terms of the redistricting data can be had in this area as well. Just click on it and you'll get more than what you want on redistricting. Most of our exploratory site, if you will, or tools are under the Explore data. This is basically where we house all of our data tools, our equity tools, what you have to be mindful of in terms if you're going to combine data. Our Census Academy, if you want to learn more on what we have to offer in terms of our data tools. We have right now videos that will help you walk through some of these tools. If you are using raw data, want to come up with your own calculations, your own numbers, because you don't really want to use our pre-tabulated data, you can go to Census Academy and view the little YouTube on MDAT. That's My Dat, MDAT. And this is a tool that we have that uses data from our current population survey, ACS, and you can calculate your own results. Explore Data Main is going to take you right into the Premier Data Extraction tool that is mostly used by the power users, if you will, or intermediate. And this is where we hope to drive a lot of the casual data users to explore, because there's a lot that you can get from there. Okay. And of course, we have our library that you can access our previous publications. Those that in the publication, we have a lot that have to do with specific terms. If you're working with the impoverished population, you can look at our income and poverty reports. If you're working with racially diverse population, you can look our historical race and ethnicity publications in housing. If you're working with housing, aside from the American Housing Survey, you can, or HUD, that's another good source for housing data. You can look at what we have there. So people often ask, well, why do you refer them to the reports and the publications? Because it helps put the data that we publish into context, and you can get a feel for how the numbers should be used, how we use them, and how probably you could use them as well. Our surveys and programs are going to give you direct insight into that specific survey or program that collects the data. So if there are questions on margins of errors or the methodology, technical documentations to help you understand the content of the survey and the operational aspect of the survey, you can find it here. Also, on the right-hand side, we have survey of business owners that provide specific data on the owners of businesses. It may not be available at all geographic levels, but you have some insights into the establishments that are on the ground right now, can help you, like Valerie was saying, can help you kind of look at who your competitors are, okay? Or if that market is oversaturated, okay? And then, of course, our newsroom. This is for business. This is where you would come to find that specific NAICS code to identify your business so that you can get data on that. And this is a tricky subject, so we'll get to it in a moment. And then, of course, about us. So what we're going to do is I want to walk you real quickly to one site that is very easy to use to get local data, okay? Local data for us is different than what public thinks of local data. When people in general think of local data, they think of their neighborhood. Well, the neighborhoods are locally defined areas. They're not necessarily census geographies, but we do have comparable geographies that can help you draw a picture of your community or your neighborhood. This tool will give you information on, and I mean a complete profile, if you're looking at a state, county, city, town, or even a large zip code. The caveat is that that geography has to be 5,000 or more. So if you know of a zip code in the Chicagoland area that is 5,000 or more, you can key it in here and it will bring a complete profile, okay, of that zip code. You've got population, age, and sex, race, Hispanic, population characteristics with regards to foreign-born and veterans, housing characteristics, family dynamics, computer and internet, education, health, economy in that place, and also a little bit of business data, okay, in terms of what are the businesses that are powering that specific geography. All right, so just basically, we're just going to go and do Chicago. I'm going to do Chicago Heights, and I'm going to do Chicago, City of Chicago, and let's do 3. You can stack up about 6 geography in this tool. We can take out the US, and so you can start your comparisons right away, depending on your service area. Again, this is large geography, but very simple tool to use. And then later on, you can drill down to your specific break down, for instance, Chicago Heights, and go down to the track level, and then look at that and to help you accumulate the geography for your service area. You can look at everything. You can select a specific topic under that cohort. It'll bring it up to the top. If it's too busy and you just want to highlight that age variable that you're looking at, you can do that as well. It's downloadable. Okay, you can do a CSV file, email this link, embed it, you name it. It's shareable, and you can do a dashboard, which will help you look at the data in 3 different ways. You can copy these or grab these and use them in your plans or your reports or your presentations. And with this tool, if you see that you want to incorporate or select another geography, you can grab it and add it, and it will go right into your table.
Wow,
Okay?
that's
So
powerful.
yeah. So instead of digging around and figuring out stuff, you have a visual, because we are very visual people, and looking at, instead of a table with numbers, it's someone will look at it and go, well, how does that relate to me? Here you have a visualization that you can see what's going on in Chicago Heights, but you can also look at what's going on in the neighboring places. Okay, so this is one tool, very easy to use, that offers you a very broad look at a specific place. And then if this is your service area and you want to target a specific um, area of the place, you can do that as well. Okay, but it's always good to have a broad picture and then drill down to your specifics, because if you just go into the very specifics, you might miss out on what's going on around, and that can also contribute. All right, so that's on the splash page of Census.gov. And so the next that we're going to do is we're going to look at Explore Data. We went through a couple of exercises last time on our session. This time is going to be a broad walkthrough of the tool, so you can get the feel for it and start exploring. So I'm just going to look at Chicago. Okay, I'm going to bring it up. And this is a general, okay, I want some general information about the city of Chicago. Large geography, okay? That in itself is a lot of homework. But with this, you get a lot of indicators or variables that you can drill down and look at, okay? I want to look at the table where this data is being generated. So I'm going to click on the table tab at the top, and now I go straight into the tool. This is my table viewer, and it always defaults to the most current data release that we have, which is at this moment decennial data. And it's the population table 1, which gives you population totals by race and ethnicity. So if out of this there's a particular variable that you are interested in, you're interested in the Black African American population, and or if you want to do the Black African American, Indian, Alaska Native, you have that variable right there that you can drill down and use that to find data later on. You also have on the left-hand side the American Communities Survey demographics and housing estimates. The difference between decennial and ACS data is that in decennial data, everybody answers the same questions, so there's no margin of error. It's 100% survey program. With ACS, ACS samples a portion of the nation. So in other words, 1 in 38 get the questionnaire every year. Error. And basically what the margin of error is that it gives you the reliability of the data, the accuracy of the data that there is, because it is a sample, there is a plus or minus, and in between that plus or minus, the actual number exists. With our ACS, we tabulated at the 90th percent confidence interval, so meaning that that is the most reliable data set that we can produce based on the methodology, okay, in the universe. There is a formula in the guidance, in the booklet. We have different instructional booklets depending on your endeavor. If you're a nonprofit, a researcher, a congressional office, or a governmental unit, we have guidebooks that will explain the survey, the methodology, so on and so forth. And also it contains a formula that if you do not want to use the 90th percent, you can recalc to 95%, okay, or 93%, 95%, something like that. So there are different levels up to that. We can't go 100% because we do not survey everybody, like in the decennial. So anything that is a survey, a sample survey, will always carry a margin of error, okay? So what does the ACS have? While decennial has your basic demographic data, ACS has your characteristics of that population. So this is where you can get, all right, age, you can get educational attainment, you can get income and poverty, you can get ethnicities, you can get employment, whether you're employed or unemployed, civilian or not, so on and so forth. A lot of different housing characteristics you can get using the ACS survey. And this is the survey that you will use to get the demographics of your specific service area. All right. How is it that you get your service area? You're going to filter it, and this is homework that you're going to have to do. But to see if you want to, for instance, if you're looking at, like we did last time, we looked at Austin and we broke it down to the tracts from the city of Chicago. We looked at the tracts that comprise the approximate location of Austin. And here, you click on geography, select tracts. It's going to ask you where they're located in Illinois. What county? You go to Cook County. And here are the tracts of all the boundaries, if you will, that make up Cook County, including the city of Chicago. All right. So we know from our previous exercise that we looked at certain tracts. So now I'm going to do 25, 14. Okay, I'm going to select a few tracts. Oops. Okay, 16, 17. We'll leave those. We'll just use a few. And if you want to look at to make sure that you are capturing the right geography within your designated community, you can map this out. Okay, so when you do done, you're immediately getting decennial population. Click on maps and it's going to draw, okay, around where it is that you are working in. Yeah. Tracks in there, it's not coming. Okay, so the map, it's defaulting to place, but I am using tracks. So you click down your geography selection. And let's see, did I pass it? There it is. You click on census tract, and there are the tracts that you have selected within the Austin area. This area, as we discussed last time when we looked at the maps from the city of Chicago that have the tracts, this area needs to be looked at by the individual that is doing the research to make a determination if we want to include it in our profile or not, because the boundary down this area was split, or down this track was splitting this one. So we have to make a determination whether we want to include it or not. For mine, I do not want to because I have not looked at it, so I want to take it out. All right, so now you have these three tracks. You go back to your table and then you can start introducing your geographies. And come into the topic icon. And if you're looking for, oh, this one is decennial data, sorry. I have to switch my table. Don't want that. Back. Oh, it's giving me decennial data. Let's go here, age and sex. All right. Now, one thing with the ACS you have to remember is that we have two data sets that are released, the 1 year and the 5 year. The 1 year is very current, but it's for geographies that are 65,000 and over. The tracks are not going to be 65,000 and over. Usually they are between 2 and 6, optimum about 4,000 people. So you need to change that product to the 5 year. The 5 year data set is produced for all geographies in the nation. 1 year is produced for large geographies, 65,000 and over. So you have the ACS 5 year, all right? So this is where you're going to go and select your topic. Out of topic, you can look at, still locking in the old one. I'm going to select survey, 5 year. Okay, so you introduce your topics and then you get by tract the results. We're still in age and sex, okay? And then you can go ahead and download it, or just if you're interested in this particular cohort, which is male up to 20 years old, you can highlight it and then do a right click and copy just that, the highlighted area, or you can copy it with headers, all of this stuff up here, or you can export the table, CSV or not, or an Excel, and that way you have your spreadsheet and you can start working with that on that. So what I ask everybody to do is when they come into, going to take these out now. I ask them to look at the topics in depth, because this is where basically the variables that you're looking for are located. If you're looking for education, okay, are the schools losing, okay, registrants or students? You could look at school enrollment, okay, by type of school or just in general. We do that and come up here, and now you can get sex by school enrollment. Again, it's a 5 year by those tracks that you selected. So you have, and you can do a time analysis on this by customizing, downloading, and here you have the different data sets that you can select, all right, to do your analyses to see if it's growing, the school enrollment is growing or decreasing. However, when you do this time analyses, most people will think, okay, I can check this data set, so on and so forth, and go all the way around. But you will be overlapping with these data sets if you do select them, because 2019 is ACS 5 year. So it's 19, 18, 16, 15. So this has 5 years worth of data. If you use this one, you're muddling. This one, you're muddling. So you have to come back and select 14. And then out of 14, you subtract those 5, and then you do your other selection. And we do have a statistical testing tool in the ACS website that you can use, that we recommend that if you're going to be comparing data sets, be it 1 year to 1 year or 5 year to 5 year, that you use that, because to the eye, the number may seem a great decrease or increase. But when you put it through the testing tool, significant or not. And it's very deceptive when you look at two numbers and say, oh my God, that's a 400 student decrease. But when you run it to the tool, it is not statistically significant. So it's on there on our website, but these are the things that we have available for you. Yeah, go ahead. Anybody have a question?
Sarah, you had a question, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering what that tool is called.
Let's see. Let me go up here under ACS. This is where you're going to go to get your base education, if you will. You have your microdata, guidance for data users in terms of how to use it, the geographies that are covered, and the technical documentation. Okay, these have our little manuals that you can look at. Grab it up. Not there. Hang on one second. I think it's under guidance. Yep, there it is. The statistical testing tool. It's a real simple tool to use. The instructions are there. It's basically a spreadsheet that is set up. When you open it up, it's set up to do your analysis for you. And all you need to do is refer to the tables, the table that you're using, the vintage, and then plug in the numbers in the specific columns, and it will do the calculations for you. So it opens up so you can see where the instructions are. Okay, so you start with the overview. Your instructions are down here in this tab. It'll give you what you need, what you don't need for 2 estimates, okay, or for multiple estimates.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
and I'll run you through what you need. So it's, like I said, very easy tool to use, and it's at your disposal. Okay, and it's under the surveys, under guidance, ACS guidance. Okay, and these are the handbooks that I was referring. So if you are in a nonprofit or in an educational position, you can look at users of the API, journalists. This one is important to me. I always, at least once a year, I look at it because I may know it, but then not know it. So might as well refresh it. Anyway, that's for the guidance there. Let's go back to Explore. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Okay, great. So that's basically how you know, to use your tool to get your geography and your demographics. Now, with regards to economic or business type data, couple of things. It's we could have another session just on business data or economic data. But the one thing that people don't normally understand is that every business has a NAICS code, okay, or falls under a certain NAICS code. That's a North America Industry Classification System. And with that, let me see if I can get back up to. With that, it describes every kind of business that is out there. If you're looking at a restaurant, what kind of restaurant? Is it fast food? Is it takeout? Is it delivery? Do you serve wine or liquor? Is it fine dining? Is it just open for lunch kind of thing? You can get that. Find a code, look your NAICS. Okay, and for now, I'm going to use the example of schools. These are all the different categories under the schools. Okay, junior high, middle, primary, and then keep coming down. It's not just academic. Got law school, medical school, parochial, professional. Keep coming down. Clerical, court, secretarial, beauty schools, cosmetics. Okay, so there are a lot of particular schools that fall under the General Code of 61, which is schools, and then each of those digits lend to the specific kind of school that you are looking for information on, okay? And it's important to know the school, that NAICS code in order to get the data, with regards to that particular school that you're looking at, okay? Once you know your NAICS, then you can come back up to Explore Data and look for data. Economic data is not available at all levels of geography. Depends on the survey, on the program or the census, because the business universe is not as large as the population and housing universe. And so when we do these surveys and run these programs like the economic census, we may have one school in a certain geography that if we release that data, the characteristic data for that school, we release who that participant is. Okay, we potentially can compromise the confidentiality of that endeavor. So some of the data is available at zip code levels, some are available at metro levels, some are available at city, large city place level, but not everything is available for all geographies. Keep that in mind. One way that you can find out is by going to the main page and look at the different economic and business surveys that we have. There's a table in that site, on that site, that gives you approximate information on the content, the release, the period, sequencing, and the geography. But we're going to do a casual search on schools. So what I'm going to do, we're in our tool. I'm going to come down here where it's got codes, and I'm going to look at industry codes. Here you can go right into your 2-digit, which is the broad-based schools, okay, container, if you will. Then 3 digits, whether it's elementary or secondary, higher education, specified, so on and so forth. These are your 2-digit NAICS codes right here for the broader category. So we're going to look, if we remember, it was 61 under educational services. So you can do that. Here's healthcare. That was another top topic. So I'm going to do educational. And again, here you have all of these specifics. I'm going to stick to educational services so you can see how it breaks out. And here you have specifics on that. Okay.
Wow.
Yep. And then when you do educational support services, you've got additional breakouts that you can go to. Okay. So let's try business school. Okay. Computer training. I'm going to go computer training to the last one that I'm available. And there's your data chip for that particular school that we want economic data for.
Okay. So
Geography.
like,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm just making a comment. So I'm looking at what's available under education. I had no idea what all was available. So you don't necessarily need to be in the education space to use this. Folks who are doing workforce development could also use these tables, you know, because I see a number of these topics are very relevant to people who are helping people to prepare for jobs.
Sure. You can, depending on what development is being, given or promoted, you can get extracts from the economic to see if there are, schools or services in that area that can help,
Yeah.
provide that service. So we've got that. And now we go to geography, and this is the one that's going to give you the indication of whether it's available or not, okay? Most people want it by place, okay? This right now is telling me it's not available. Indication to me, it's not available. So, place, county. Okay, so we go to Illinois, and then Cook. And then right here you can search. And now you start to get data results, okay, that you can look at. And let's see, let's do county business patterns, because this is a very good survey, county business patterns. This collects the data on those establishments in a particular geography, and it gives you the number of those establishments in that geography, their payroll, okay, first quarter, and the number of employees. And it's broken down into different, iterations, if you will. You can get one that further exploration, you can get by zip code, the data by the county business patterns by zip code. Okay, so using your filter, you've got that by geography. Another thing that you can do is by surveys. When you click on that, here it grays out what is available, because we have a NAICS code. Okay, computer training, it knows automatically. I can't find that under ACS or decennial, but I can find it under the economic program.
Question for you, Ileana. Yeah. Is it possible, once you identify the numbers of establishments, to map them to?
No. Okay. Because the business register is under Title 26, which is like Title 13, which is our master address file. Right. It's all held in confidence.
Gotcha.
Yeah, what we do is we aggregate what's inside that geography. So if you look at what businesses through the county business patterns are in 60657, it'll break it down by total businesses, number of employees, blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha.
If you map it out, if we were able to map it out, you would have locations of those businesses, right. And that is potentially confidentiality issues.
Gotcha.
Okay? So it's all aggregate. Okay.
Okay. So is there any visualization you can do with those data? Other than a map?
That's the only thing that we have. The other thing that you can do is you can download this to an Excel spreadsheet and then do your own graphs and pivot charts and so on and so forth.
Gotcha.
Okay. People use our CSV downloads to create Tableau visualizations.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't know how to use Tableau, so I can't tell you how to do it. But I just know that they do, use our data in those forms to create visualizations. So
thank you.
Yeah. So if you want to do mapping out of that data, this is basically what you will get. Okay, because we're looking at number of employees, and in terms of the place, we've got county. It is not, let's see, is it available at the zip code? We didn't give it a zip code, but zip code tabulation area. Okay, we didn't give it a specific zip code, but say I want to look at that select. Okay, and then let me see the table. There you go.
Oh, wow. This is powerful.
Yeah, you've got 38 establishments, and there's 608 employees in those 38 establishments. Okay, so like I said, this was a real quick, mean, down and dirty kind of example. But I do want to invite you to look at under the census main page, go to our business and economy page, and this will give you more information in terms of the programs that collect the data that power that tool. A couple of other things, you may be reading them in the news a lot. They quote the Small Business Pulse surveys. These are quickly deployed data gathering surveys that came out of COVID. We started 3 months after COVID. We went into lockdown, and it was a way of us getting data about what's going on the ground to the public. We have the Small Business Survey edition and the Household Pulse Survey Edition, which the questions asked change depending on how the situation on the ground changes. When we started, we were asking on the Household Pulse Survey, are you in fear of losing your job? Have your hours have been decreased? How about rent, eviction, so on and so forth. Then it changed into food insecurity, and then it changed into vaccine and what do you call vaccine accessibility, so on and so forth. And now it's a hesitancy. Same thing with the business. When they closed, were you able to pivot to do carry out? Did you retain your employees? How about healthcare? And then problems getting disinfectants and carry out in equipment or products. And now it's different because it's the staffing. Everybody's reporting staffing shortages, difficulties in the supply chain. So conditions on the ground move, our questions move. So interesting to look at, and they're interactive, and you can see the entire series. Okay, but this is definitely the place. If you're looking for business data, this is the place to go.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And we'll touch on this again too when we go into business planning, right?
Yep.
Oh my goodness, this is great stuff. Are there any questions before we go, ladies? Okay. All right. So this concludes today's session. We really appreciate your attending live here in the Zoom room. We appreciate those of you who have tuned in on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube and all those different places. If you have any questions, feel free to post and I'll make sure that we get to those. And if something I can't answer, I'll put you in touch with Ileana. All right, and Ileana, before we go, can you share your contact information?
I'm typing in my email.
Okay. All right, and then for those who are not in the Zoom room, can you just share how they can reach you? And there are people watching on Facebook as well. Okay, so that's Ileana, that's ILEANA .C as in Curtis dot Serrano, SERRANO at Census.gov for those of you who are watching on social media. All right. So I'm just going to check the chat, make sure we don't have any more questions. All right, so it looks like we're done. And Ileana, you have been able to cover so much in so little time. Are there any comments from our Zoom audience? Any comments or questions before we go?
My only comment is I invite you to explore what Census.gov has to offer. We do have, of course, lots of data, and we have many data tools to help you get at that data, be it demographic, housing, geography, so on and so forth. But there are other things, other items on Census.gov that can help you. You can look at our America Count stories. And these are narratives that involve real life stories. People such as yourself, nonprofits, anything that they use census data to incorporate into their nonprofit, to plan out, to define, to enrich their programs. So there are a lot of stories online that can give you inspiration, if you will, or ideas on how to approach this.
Okay. All right, awesome. All right, so this concludes today's session. Again, Ileana, thank you so much. We really appreciate your pulling this together for us very quickly. We thank our Zoom audience because it was the folks who were attending live in Zoom who had very specific questions last week, and that helped us to shape, these forums going forward. So Monday, we will talk about program design and how you can use your Census.gov to get the data to develop programs and services. All right, so until then, we will say goodbye, and we're looking forward to seeing you on Monday.
All right, everyone, have a good weekend.
All
Bye.
right, bye-bye. Take care.